Welcome, everyone. We are genuinely so glad you're here, settling in with us today. Perhaps
Mhm.
taking a moment for yourself amidst a busy week.
Mhm.
We're going to tackle a topic that is, I think, really foundational to every decision you make after the age of, say, 30.
Right, that age.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the age when you realize the map you were handed in your 20s.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite match the territory anymore.
Not even close.
It's all about personal sovereignty.
Yeah.
And I want to start, as we always do, with a question for you, the person listening right now.
Mhm.
The experienced adult who has, seen a few things and navigated a few challenges.
Mhm.
Have you ever found yourself, maybe even subconsciously, just
Mhm.
waiting for someone else, a manager, a cultural shift, a partner, or even just society, to grant you permission to live the life you truly want?
That's such a powerful question.
That feeling that until an external validator, signs off on your idea or your dream or your change of direction, you're not allowed to begin.
And that experience of waiting for that external go ahead,
Mm.
it isn't just common. I mean, it is fundamentally limiting.
It is.
It's like an invisible fence that keeps so many people from accessing their full potential. And that's really what our deep dive is about today. We're exploring this profound yet surprisingly simple idea of choosing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We pulled our analysis for this directly from material that focuses on these interwoven concepts of sovereignty, responsibility, and freedom.
And I think it's important to say our goal isn't to get lost in, complex philosophical theories.
No, not at all. We are here to extract simple, practical truths, the kind of nuggets you can take and apply to your everyday life, like immediately. The goal is to shift your internal operating system from waiting mode to action mode.
Exactly. Think of our mission today as finding the blueprint that's buried in this source material. We want to show you the practical pathway that moves you from that state of waiting for external approval to becoming the undeniable architect of your own future.
That's a great way to put it.
If you've felt lately that your life is happening to you, that you're just reacting to circumstances rather than creating them, then this deep dive, it offers a framework for seizing back control.
Mm-hmm.
This conversation is really custom-made for the person who knows they deserve more clarity and internal peace, but maybe isn't sure how to start claiming it without feeling,
Selfish.
Absolutely. And just before we jump into the material, if these kinds of discussions, these deep dives that aim to make complex ideas clear and practical, if they bring value to your life, we just want to invite you to support us.
Please do.
Please take a moment to like this deep dive, share it with someone you know who might be caught in that waiting game, and subscribe to our channel, Everyday Simple Truths. Your support really helps us ensure these important grounded discussions continue to reach those who need them most.
Okay, let's jump right into the sources because they make an incredibly bold opening statement.
They really do. They establish this benchmark for success that isn't financial or, based on achievement.
Yeah.
It's behavioral. The material claims that what is truly rare today is the person who stops waiting for a seat at the table
And instead,
and builds their own table.
that analogy, building your own table, it resonates so deeply, especially for experienced adults. I mean, think about it. Think about the years we spend trying to earn a promotion or win a client's approval.
Or get a mentor's recommendation.
Exactly, or just gain validation from established institutions.
Mm.
We spend so much energy polishing our credentials just to get a spot at someone else's already crowded table.
Right.
The material suggests that this entire paradigm,
Right.
that's the trap. The scarce commodity isn't talent. It's the audacity to declare that the existing structures are, well, irrelevant to your potential.
And what's so sharp about this insight is how precisely it defines that energy sink we call the waiting game. It's not just some generalized
I
anxiety.
mean, it's specific.
It's very specific. The source material claims we are actively waiting for 3 particular things. And until we recognize them, we just stay stuck. So what are those 3 traps?
They're so insidious because they often masquerade as, virtue or humility.
Mm.
First, people are waiting for permission. This is that feeling that you need a legal or a moral or a professional green light from some outside authority to begin.
Like, is it okay if I start my own business, or am I allowed to change careers at 45?
Precisely. The second thing is people are waiting for validation. They need their ideas or their pain or their chosen path to be affirmed as worthwhile by external metrics or public opinion before they'll proceed.
They need someone to say, yes, that's a good idea. You should do that.
Exactly.
Right.
And then the third one, and this is perhaps the most crippling for our audience, waiting for someone to finally look at you and say, you're good enough.
That's the one. That third one, the good enough validator.
Yeah.
That's the one that ties us up the tightest.
It really is.
It stems from decades of schooling and corporate structures and even family dynamics where our value was always tied to performance reviews or grades or these external assessments.
We become externally dependent.
Totally. Always looking for a mirror to tell us we're okay.
Yeah.
But the source material, almost immediately, it just hits us with this necessary blunt truth. It's designed to shatter that mirror and just snap us out of the cycle.
And it is blunt. It's that moment of radical realization. Nobody's coming to save you.
Right.
And look, this is not a message of hopelessness. It's actually a message of ultimate empowerment. The sources explicitly name the places we frequently look for this salvation. They say no bots, no government, no mentor.
Nobody's coming.
Nobody. And while mentorship is valuable, of course it is, waiting for a savior, waiting for someone else to carry the burden of your future is a guarantee of disappointment. If you want to rise, if you want your circumstances to change, you must choose yourself first. That choice is the only thing that starts the engine.
I do appreciate the bluntness, but here's where I want to pause and maybe introduce some nuance, just based on what we know about human behavior.
Okay.
For the listener who has been burned, right, who has genuinely faced systemic obstacles, or who has benefited hugely from a key mentor, how do they reconcile this message, nobody's coming to save you, with the practical reality that community support and guidance are absolutely vital for success?
Yeah.
Where exactly is the material drawing the line here?
That's an excellent distinction, and it goes right to the heart of sovereignty versus, say, dependency. The line is drawn not on receiving help, but on delegating responsibility.
Ah, okay. It's like a key difference.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Community and mentorship provide tools, context, encouragement. They're a helping hand on your journey. But waiting for salvation means you're waiting for someone to design the map for you and carry your backpack.
Right, to do the work.
To do the work. The source is speaking against the mindset that says, I cannot start until person X approves or opportunity Y materializes. It demands you recognize that the initiative, the primary investment of energy, time, and belief, it has to come from you. The savior you're waiting for is actually just the sovereign self you haven't activated yet.
Ooh, I like that. The sovereign self is the savior. That reframing is incredibly powerful. And it leads us right into how the sources redefine the act of choice itself. Because a lot of people, they hear choose yourself and they immediately think, I don't know, self-help, arrogance. Or
Selfishness.
selfishness, exactly.
Yeah.
But the material directly addresses this misconception.
It does, head on. It emphasizes that choosing yourself is not an act of arrogance. It is fundamentally an act of clarity. Arrogance is focused on external comparisons, on being superior to others. Clarity is focused solely on internal assessment and honest alignment. That's it.
Clarity is such a beautiful replacement for arrogance because it shifts the locus of power, doesn't it? Arrogance seeks to win external praise. Clarity seeks internal peace. The source defines this moment of choice as the moment an individual, with clarity and without apology, declares, my needs, my dreams, and my voice, they matter.
And that declaration is identified as the very beginning of real power. It's the moment you stop deferring your value judgment to the outside world and you bring it back home.
And it's not just a quiet thought, is it? It's a foundational shift that immediately triggers observable changes in your behavior.
It has to. If you genuinely believe your voice matters, you will just stop engaging in activities that suggest the opposite. The sources highlight 4 specific actions that just cease once this fundamental choice is made.
Okay, let's unpack these 4 crucial shifts because I think these are the practical indicators that show the listener they're actually moving into sovereignty.
Okay.
The first is clear. You stop living for applause. We mentioned this earlier, but let's look at the sheer drain of maintaining that applause chase. It requires constantly tailoring your life, your hobbies, your career focus, even your political opinions to maximize external approval.
It's exactly.
When you stop chasing applause, you free up massive amounts of cognitive and emotional energy.
And that ties right into the second shift. You stop performing for approval. Living for applause is the motivation. Performing for approval is the continuous, exhausting action required to get it.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure, think of the adult who keeps a job they hate. not because they need the money, but because the job title or the company name validates them socially. They're performing a role rather than doing meaningful work. When that performance stops, the authentic self can finally emerge.
But the third shift is the one I think hits our audience, the experienced adults, the hardest. It's this deep-seated impulse to stop shrinking, to make others comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Can we explore the cost of this? Why do we, as capable, successful adults, still feel this need to shrink our ideas or our energy or our personalities?
We do it because comfort is currency in social groups. It's that simple. When we express big dreams or operate at high energy, we can inadvertently expose the limitations or the stagnation of those around us.
And that creates discomfort.
It creates discomfort. So to avoid rocking the boat, we dim our light. We use smaller words, we take up less physical space, we minimize our achievements. The source material is essentially saying, the cost of maintaining someone else's comfort zone is the surrender of your own true identity.
Wow.
Choosing yourself means accepting that your clarity might, in fact, make other people uncomfortable, and you must prioritize your truth over their temporary ease.
That is a challenging, necessary thought. Because the social backlash for unshrinking, it can be immediate. You get misunderstanding, accusations of selfishness, or even social isolation. It truly takes guts.
It does, which, as you said, we'll get into later. And that brings us to the fourth shift, which is really the culmination of all this internal work. You stop asking, am I allowed? And you start declaring, this is who I am.
That's the pivot.
That's the whole pivot. This move from seeking external permission to claiming internal ownership is the complete embrace of self-sovereignty. The question, am I allowed, delegates power outward. The declaration, this is who I am, claims power inward.
But there's a big but here.
There's a very big but. The sources are crystal clear. This powerful declaration is only sustainable if you are willing to face the difficult demands of full responsibility. That's the prerequisite for everything else.
Okay, so that's our next section. The cornerstone of power, taking full responsibility.
Exactly. We're transitioning now to what is probably the most challenging segment, because while choosing yourself is liberating, it immediately imposes a heavy requirement.
That's the other side of the coin.
It is. The source material is blunt. Self-choice is impossible without taking full responsibility for one's life. And this is the truth most people avoid because, honestly, the truth often feels not just heavy, but overwhelming.
It requires a level of radical self-honesty that is, frankly, it's exhausting to maintain, at least initially. Responsibility is the cornerstone of the power we just talked about. If I declare myself the architect of my life, I have to own the entire construction site, past and present, which means owning all the debris and the foundational flaws too.
That's a great metaphor.
And for the adult who has accumulated real-life scar tissue, trauma, financial failures, relational baggage, taking full responsibility can feel like accepting the blame for everything bad that has ever happened to them.
And that's the critical psychological hurdle we have to get over. We must differentiate between accepting responsibility for our present response and accepting blame for every historical event. They are not the same thing.
Okay, so how do we do that?
The material provides a clear instruction set for ending the blame cycle, which allows us to separate these two things.
Let's detail those explicit behaviors that must be abandoned, because they really are the language of limitation. What's the first one?
First, no more blaming the past. For an adult audience, this is absolutely vital. While the past childhood, economic circumstances, bad luck, it profoundly shaped us, the sources insist that those events do not define our present response or our future trajectory.
So you have to draw a line.
You have to draw a line. You say, here's the history, and here is my decision today.
And psychologically, that is immensely hard, because our identity is so often wrapped up in our story as a struggle.
Absolutely. If you've spent 20 years framing your career stagnation around that one layoff in 2008, or your relational problems around how my parents raised me, abandoning that narrative requires reconstructing who you fundamentally are.
You lose the story.
You lose the story, but the source material demands that separation. The history influenced you, but it no longer controls the remote to your action.
Okay, so no more blaming the past. What's the second behavior we have to abandon?
Second, we must abandon pointing fingers. We stop externalizing our problems or our failures, looking for the person or the entity that caused the current unpleasant situation.
I see this so often in people who jump from job to job, and they're always blaming the management structure or the co-workers or the economy.
Right.
And they never pause to ask, what is the consistent pattern that I'm bringing to every single environment that produces this same result?
And that self-reflection, that is the hard work. It really is. And the third behavior to abandon, which often sums up the first two, is the excuse. I can't because they didn't.
Yeah. I can't succeed because they didn't give me the right training. I can't be happy because they didn't love me correctly.
Exactly. It's the narrative of limitation based on what was withheld from you, what opportunity was denied. It's the mental script that says, my trajectory is dependent on external input I failed to receive.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, taking ownership doesn't mean standing up and saying, I caused all my financial problems.
Not at all.
It means saying, regardless of the financial problems, I am responsible for the next 5 financial decisions I make, starting right now. It means taking ownership especially for the challenging, messy parts of life, because those are the only parts where true power can be reclaimed.
That's it. And when you accept that the past is history, that finger-pointing is a distraction, and that excuses are just that, excuses, a profound, almost instantaneous transformation in your identity begins to happen.
It's the ultimate pivot, isn't it? Because as you noted, many experienced adults, we identify strongly with our victimhood or our struggles. We continually center the trauma, the setback, the unfairness.
We do.
And while those things are absolutely real and should be acknowledged, continuously centering that narrative keeps the power firmly in the hands of the external force that hurt us in the first place.
This is the essential paradigm shift the source material provides. It's about moving the listener from the passive role to the active role. The individual moves from being a victim of circumstance to becoming the architect of your future.
Victim to architect.
And that shift isn't just motivational fluff, it's a change in your functional reality. The victim reacts to the building that others built around them. The architect designs and builds the structure according to their own plans.
So what does being the architect look like practically,
Yeah.
in terms of your daily internal monologue?
Okay, so when a setback occurs, a project fails, a relationship hits a snag, a mistake is made, the victim's monologue is, who did this to me? Why is this happening? The architect's internal monologue shifts immediately to 3 empowering questions. What was my role in this outcome? What specific variable did I introduce or maybe ignore? And what do I learn now to change the design of my next attempt?
That's such an empowering pivot, even when it's painful.
It is, because accepting ownership of the outcome, even a negative one, means you also claim ownership of the solution. If I believe the failing project was due to the economy, I'm powerless.
Nothing you can do.
Right. But if I believe the failing project was due to my poor resource allocation, well, I can change the allocation tomorrow. I have the power back.
And this transition, while it requires courage and consistency, it's the only pathway to the freedom the source material promises. Freedom isn't the absence of trouble.
No.
It's the ability to respond intentionally to trouble. And that ability is only unlocked through the absolute acceptance of responsibility. So once you claim that architect title, you have earned the right and the ability to draw boundaries.
Which is our next crucial practical step.
Exactly. Protecting the peace. So we've established the foundation: choice and responsibility. Now, the third piece is maintenance and defense. It's one thing to choose yourself and take responsibility. It's another thing entirely to protect that new foundation from the constant pressures of the outside world.
It really is.
The source material is quite insistent on this defensive posture. It says, if you choose yourself, you better learn to protect yourself. Boundaries aren't an accessory. They're a vital, mandatory part of protecting the core choice you made back in Section 1.
And boundaries are so often misunderstood as being cold or aggressive.
Yeah, people think of them as walls.
Exactly. Walls built to keep people out. But as you said, they are really lines drawn to define what you will allow to stay in, namely your peace, your energy, and your commitment to your chosen path.
I like that.
And the source material provides 3 specific constraints that make boundaries absolutely necessary for the adult navigating complex life demands.
Okay, let's break down those limits of giving, which are so relatable to anyone managing a demanding life. What's the first one?
First, the source reminds us, you can't be everything to everyone.
Oh, that's a hard one.
It is. We are constantly pressured, especially by digital culture, to be hyper available, perfectly responsive, and infinitely capable. But trying to perfectly meet every expectation is just a guaranteed path to depletion and internal collapse.
That's a law of physics, really.
It is a law of physics applied to energy. If you try to hold too many different roles simultaneously, perfect parent, top performer, flawless friend, engaged citizen, you become diluted. You end up being 10% effective in 10 areas rather than 100% effective in the 3 areas that genuinely matter to your core mission.
So you have to accept that you're going to disappoint someone.
Recognizing that you must disappoint someone somewhere is a necessary act of maturity.
And that leads directly to the second constraint.
It does. You can't say yes when your soul is screaming no.
That internal scream.
That internal scream is the immediate sign of misalignment. It's your intuition, which is often buried under years of people-pleasing, telling you that a request or a commitment will violate your core needs or drain your resources or pull you off the path you chose.
And we so often ignore that scream because the social pressure to just comply is immense.
But listening to that inner voice, that no, is an absolute act of sovereignty. It means you are putting the needs of the architect, the need for time to design, time to rest, time to focus above the temporary need to make someone else feel comfortable. If you continually say yes when your internal voice is saying no, you are systematically abandoning yourself.
Which is the very thing we're trying to stop.
The very thing. And the third constraint is perhaps the most visceral for the experienced adult who is struggling with burnout. You can't keep pouring from a cup that's bone dry.
We all get that one.
We all intuitively understand this. If you've spent years constantly giving, performing, accommodating, volunteering, and sacrificing, there is nothing left for the architect to build with. The boundary here isn't hostile. It's an emergency declaration of self-preservation.
It's mandatory resource management.
That's all it is. It's a resource management required to sustain your new chosen path. If you take responsibility for your future, you must also take responsibility for the fuel that will get you there. And fuel in this context is not limitless. It is rest, time, focused energy, and internal peace.
However, this necessity of drawing the line, it comes with guaranteed fallout. And this is where the source material is so practical and realistic. It specifically notes that choosing yourself will sometimes disappoint people and will sometimes confuse them. So how should the listener, the adult who is highly concerned with social harmony, navigate that immediate discomfort when they first start establishing these boundaries?
We have to normalize this reaction from others. That's the first step. If you've spent 20 years being the reliable, instant yes person, the one who always fixes the problem or volunteers for the extra task or absorbs the emotional drama, the first time you say no, the people around you are going to feel genuinely destabilized.
They will.
They might interpret your boundary as punishment or withdrawal or arrogance. It's so critical to remember that their reaction is a reflection of their dependency on your old self, not an objective assessment of your new choice.
So the key is to allow that disappointment to exist without feeling compelled to rush in and fix it or apologize for it.
Yes.
It takes real fortitude to just sit with someone else's confusion or mild anger.
Absolutely. And the central principle, the anchor that has to reinforce your commitment through that discomfort is this. Your peace is not up for negotiation.
Say it again.
Your peace is not up for negotiation. Peace is the fertile ground where growth happens. If your peace is constantly being invaded or compromised by external demands, you cannot sustain the new identity of the self-chosen architect. Negotiating your peace is like giving away your power supply.
And that commitment to peace is where the profound internal transformation really begins. The sources analyze this deeply, pointing out that transformation begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself.
Yes.
The self-abandonment, the shrinking, the performing, the asking for permission, that was the root cause of the waiting game in the first place.
And by stopping the abandonment, you shift your entire motivational framework. You contrast the old goals of external validation with the new goals of internal fidelity. This is the crucial moment where you decide to grow, not to please.
Grow, not please.
And you decide to evolve, not to perform.
That distinction, growth versus performance, that is a fundamental shift in psychological masters, isn't it?
It is.
Performance is about maximizing external approval, often through unsustainable effort. Growth and evolution are about serving your internal curriculum learning, refining skills, becoming more aligned. When you choose yourself and protect that choice with boundaries, you stop serving the fickle approval of others, and you start serving your own continuous improvement and your own internal standard. And this protected sovereign space is what allows the tangible rewards of self-backing to finally appear.
That's right.
Which brings us to our final section. The rewards of self-backing resilience and true freedom.
Okay.
As the sources confirm, once you consistently maintain this cycle, choosing, taking responsibility, and protecting your peace, there's a kind of a law of attraction, or maybe more accurately, a law of alignment, that kicks in.
Alignment is the better word.
The energy you put out changes, and the world begins to respond in kind. You stop chasing things that don't fit, and you become visible to the things that do.
Yes, and the source material is very specific about the tangible rewards that begin to appear as a consequence of this alignment. It lists 3 key outcomes.
What are they?
You start attracting better people, you start attracting better opportunities, and you start attracting a better version of yourself. This is not magic. It's the natural result of raising your internal standard.
Okay, let's break down that first one. Attracting better people. When you stop shrinking and stop performing and start declaring, this is who I am, you automatically repel those who only benefited from your shrinking or your performance.
You do. And conversely, you become highly attractive to people who value authenticity, clarity, and competence.
So your circle changes.
Your circle has to change. The old circle may feel comfortable, but if it was built on shared compromise and external validation, it will feel stifling once you move into sovereignty. The new people you attract are often those who are also on the path of self-choice, meaning the relationship is founded on mutual respect for boundaries and mutual encouragement for growth.
Rather than codependency or shared anxiety.
Precisely.
And that translates directly into attracting better opportunities.
It does. When you stop chasing roles that don't fit or taking every job because you need the external validation, you start prioritizing alignment. The universe or the market or your network, whatever you want to call it, it responds to that clarity when you stand up and say, this is the unique value I offer. The unique opportunities that actually need that value suddenly become visible.
And the ultimate reward, the one that makes the whole journey worthwhile,
is attracting a better version of yourself. The self that stops performing is often calmer, clearer, and more grounded. That version isn't spending 80% of its energy fighting internal resistance or external pressure. That energy is now channeled into creation and genuine fulfillment.
The sources make a crucial point here about the source of success. They reiterate that success does not come from pleasing the world.
Which is a fleeting, impossible goal.
An impossible goal that forces constant change and compromise. Instead, they say success comes from backing yourself even when nobody else does. And that last part, even when nobody else does, that's the definition of inner strength.
And that requires guts. The material refers to that inner strength bluntly and accurately as guts. Choosing yourself takes guts. It requires a sustained, deliberate act of courage, primarily because the path of self-sovereignty is so often contrary to societal conditioning, familial expectations, and established norms.
You're breaking a social contract.
In many ways, you are.
And we should detail what exactly requires this courage, especially for an adult audience who understands the full weight of those social and familial expectations. The sources detail 3 specific actions that require guts. First,
the courage to walk away from what's normal. Normal often means predictable, safe, culturally accepted, even if it's miserable. To diverge from the established path, to leave the comfortable, miserable job for the risky, fulfilling venture requires immense fortitude.
That divergence is often the first visible sign of self-choice. And then, second,
it takes guts to say no to expectations. And these aren't just minor social requests. These are often deep-seated generational expectations. The idea of what your parents expected you to become, the role you inherited within your family unit, the identity your partner expects you to maintain.
Saying no to those can feel like a profound betrayal.
It can. It feels like you are dismantling an entire shared history.
And that feeling of betrayal is exactly why so many people get stuck right here. They fear the emotional fallout of disappointing their loved ones more than they fear their own stagnation.
That fear is real, but the sources insist you have to push through it because the alternative is abandoning your own life. And the third action is the hardest, longest requirement of guts.
What is it?
It takes guts to stand alone, to be misunderstood, and to be talked about, all while you are fiercely focused on building something real.
Wow. When you build your own table, you're often working in silence, without validation, and sometimes with external criticism.
That's right.
People will question your motives, they'll label you as selfish, or they'll dismiss your efforts because they don't see the traditional safety net. This phase is painful, it's lonely, and it is absolutely mandatory for real creation.
And this is precisely the crucible in which resilience is forged. The process of standing alone, of being misunderstood, of having to rely solely on your internal conviction that builds clarity and inner power. That power isn't granted by an external degree or a title. It's earned by weathering the storm of divergence.
It's a self-confirming loop.
It is. The more you back yourself in the face of criticism, the stronger your inner power becomes, and the less you require external validation. You become self-authorizing.
And that leads us to the ultimate outcome.
Right.
The beautiful, expansive consequence of this entire journey. The individual eventually just stops living someone else's version of life. They stop chasing roles that don't fit them, the roles they thought they should want. They stop dimming their light to fit inside someone else's box or meet some predefined standard. This is the moment of pure sovereign emergence.
And the resulting state is defined by the source material as living fully, boldly, unapologetically. And the material elevates this state beyond mere personal satisfaction. It calls it real leadership.
Oh, so?
Because when one person makes this choice, when one mature adult steps fully into their own sovereignty, it gives others implicit permission to do the same.
It creates a powerful magnetic ripple effect.
It does.
When a mature, grounded adult in a community or a family unit says, I'm doing things differently because this is what aligns with my needs and my truth, it opens the door for everyone else to question their own inherited boundaries and expectations. It's an incredibly generous act of vulnerability and strength.
Then finally, we just need to clarify the ultimate motivation behind all of this work. This is not about rebellion, which is just a reaction to external forces.
Right.
Nor is it about ego, which only seeks external validation. The ultimate goal, the deepest reward, is alignment. Alignment means your outer life, your actions, your relationships, your career, your boundaries, matches your inner truth and your core values.
And that alignment is the key. It's the key to unlocking the only kind of freedom that truly matters in this life.
The only kind.
The kind no one can give you, and therefore the kind no one can take away. That is the freedom of sovereignty. It resides entirely within your defined boundaries and your intentional choices, making it impervious to external circumstance or control. It means you are truly free regardless of what the world throws at you. So as we circle back to our opening question and the core invitation of this deep dive, I challenge you, the listener, today. Are you still waiting? Are you still waiting for that permission slip to sign your own life into being? Still performing for approval in roles that drain you? Still apologizing for being too much? Or conversely, for feeling like you aren't enough to demand your own space?
The invitation from the source material is clear, it's urgent, and it's deeply loving. It's time to choose yourself, to own your voice, defend your peace, claim responsibility, and step into a life where you lead, not follow. It starts with one clear choice right now.
Remember, every great transformation begins with a single clear choice. And your choice today is simply to back yourself, fully, unequivocally, and never look back.
And what stands out here and what we want to leave you with is this provocative thought to consider throughout your day. If you started today, right now, by declaring one non-negotiable boundary, or by taking one single action based entirely on your needs rather than someone else's expectations, how quickly would you feel the undeniable, irreversible shift from waiting for life to start to actually leading it? The power to begin is always within you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into self-sovereignty, responsibility, and freedom. We sincerely wish you health and strength as you navigate your choices and build that beautiful, aligned future you're meant to live.
Goodbye for now, and remember to keep pursuing those everyday simple truths.
Take great care.